Support WrestleTalk!
Give us a subscribe. Dean Ambrose just turned heel. I'm Ollie Davis. This is the other one, Luke Owen. Welcome to this rather subdued edition of WrestleRamble, the review of Raw, which is sponsored by Beer 52. Get your free case of craft beer at www.beer52.com/WrestleTalk. We'll be trying this later in Roman Reigns' honour. But yes, we cannot really talk about the Dean Ambrose heel turn without talking about how Monday Night Raw opened. And that was with Roman Reigns coming out for an in-ring promo. So far, so every episode of Raw ever. The crowd boo him, also exactly the same. I internally got the groan. Here we go. Roman Reigns opens an episode of Raw. He's going to set up a 6-man tag for the main event. And then he gets in the ring and he looked different. He was in street clothes, just a black T-shirt with a chain and just some jeans or tracksuit bottoms or whatever, which is different to the usual non-Roman, not in wrestling gear look.
It's the best he's looked in a while. I thought this because one of the things I've never been that keen on with Roman Reigns as a character is A, his gear, and B, the way that they dress him when he's not in wrestling matches, which is usually his gear.
Yeah.
But like a slight variation of that gear. And here he came out just in his regular old Joe clothes, and I thought, this is
literally regular Joe.
Regular Joe. And I was like, this is the best he's looked in quite some time on this show. He looks cool.
And I'm going to be honest here. He then said, speaking of Joe, I'm out here as Joe Anoa'i. That's, Roman Reigns isn't my real name. Roman Reigns isn't my real name. Joe Anoa'i is. And I thought, here we go. WWE doing the tried and tested method of say people's real names to make a feud more real. But then I started to think, the tone does feel a bit weird here. And who's he building a feud with? Like, the Brock Lesnar Braun Strowman thing hasn't gone this layer. So it was confusing. And then he said, I want to be a fighting champion, but I can't be a fighting champion because I've got leukemia. And then everyone was like, boo. And it took me a few sentences to be like, what?
Yeah, when I logged onto my computer this morning to watch Raw, I saw someone say in the Discord channel, I just had the Raw chat open, and someone had said, can't believe the news about Roman Reigns. So I think as I started the episode, I was kind of already prepared that something was going to get announced. And I'd heard the night before a lot of people talking about Roman Reigns wasn't working the house shows, he's possibly injured, that can throw a spanner into the works for Crown Jewel.
Loads of people didn't work the weekend house shows though. Rey Mysterio, Randy Orton, Alexa Bliss. So it was like maybe they got some time off ahead of Crown Jewel and stuff.
Exactly. So I kind of and when he came down wearing his regular Joe clothes, I suddenly thought, something isn't quite right here. And then it was even weirder because I'm here thinking okay, so I've just seen that people talking about who've watched the show already can't believe about that Roman Reigns news. There's all those news over the weekends, Roman Reigns might be injured. He's coming out in his regular Joe clothes. But you've got Michael Cole going, he's going to be defending that Universal Championship at Crown Jewel. So I really didn't know what was going on. And as you say, he cut this promo, and as soon as he said, my name is Joe, I was like, something terrible has happened. But I don't think I ever could have guessed or expected that this was what he was going to say next.
It's just absolutely astounding. The man's got leukemia. That's shocking in and of itself. But then he reveals that he's been, in remission from leukemia for 11 years. He was first diagnosed with it when he was 22. And I was racking my brains, surely this has come up before. But they haven't. So Roman Reigns must have, been very understandably private about this matter and has kept it to himself. And usually that's the sort of thing WWE would love to pounce on and embellish to form a bit more of a character. So, you think of all the ways they've tried to get Roman Reigns over, and they have, and they shouldn't have done. They shouldn't have done this, used this as fuel to get him over. But it's just I was thinking about this earlier. We usually get things like this as injuries. You know, Daniel Bryan, I've got a concussion. I've got a history of concussions. If I have any more concussions, it could, have terrible results. Or Edges, I've got neck injuries. I could be paralyzed. They're all they're physical injuries, and I'm not taken away from that. But it's just different to a disease where it's not like I'm going to go away for 9 months and rehab my arm. Oh my God, it's really serious, possibly even a year. To, like, this is a guy who's had leukemia twice in 11 years, and that's a young age. Like that, and that's that's more. It's totally different to an injury. It's an illness. It's a disease where, worst case scenario, it's not like you can't wrestle again. It's like, the other thing.
Well, exactly. Yeah. I mean, I believe. I mean, I don't know the exact statistics on this, but I think what I've sort of seen people said online is that like survival rate is about 50% anyway. But like when you fall into your second. Your second batch of it, that your chances of survival do diminish. I think many people here have had family members that have succumbed to forms of cancer over time. I have myself. My mum was recently. So it is a really bad situation, and it sucks so much, and it really does as well. And like I think that you and I on this show, we've been maybe some of the few defenders of Roman Reigns as an in-ring worker. We've always said the character doesn't work. The character is really, really bad, and his push hasn't really worked. But I've always enjoyed Roman Reigns as an in-ring worker. But like this was, it was him coming out here. This wasn't Roman Reigns the character. This wasn't Roman Reigns the worker. This was Joe, the guy. And the outpouring of love and support for him from the wrestling community, not just within WWE, but outside. Tama Tonga was sending Will Ospreay. New Japan.
Tama Tonga being nice on Twitter.
Well, exactly.
That's how, serious
That's
this is.
That's how big a story this is. Yeah, New Japan, like, they even said, any champion of any company transcends this business. And they send their support to him. It's a really sucky situation. Like leukemia, cancer sucks anyway. Like regardless, but it's difficult.
Yeah. So he says all this, and it cuts to the crowd, and people are crying.
Yeah. I was really struggling to hold back the tears watching it.
And it wasn't until, like he said, I'm gonna go away for a bit. I'm gonna beat this. And I'm going to come back very, very soon. I hope the same. And
Absolutely.
he walks up to the ramp, and then Seth Rollins and Dean Ambrose come out. And they just, they do the Shield fist bump. And Dean almost immediately buried his head in Roman's ample bosom. And Seth Rollins was just in tears, red-faced, puffy-eyed. And so from what Dave Meltzer on the Wrestling Observer has said, very few people knew about this backstage. Maybe you had an inkling that he was injured, but you didn't know an announcement was going to be made at the start of Raw to address that.
Yeah.
But we don't know how. Like, there's the speculation that Corey Graves, when it cut to the announcers at ringside, they were very beaten up. Corey Graves also looked like he was crying.
Yeah.
And you got to think, was that the first time people were hearing this?
Well, that's what I think. Like, Brian Alvarez and Meltzer speculated this on Wrestling Observer Radio. But when I mentioned that, like, Michael Cole was there plugging the Universal Championship match at Crown Jewel, to me that suggests that they didn't know. And not that they didn't know, they weren't told that that's what he was going to announce. Because otherwise, you'd have just opened the show cold, and you wouldn't have had the announcers doing the plug for matches at Crown Jewel. You'd have just had Roman come down to the ring in silence and make his speech, and then cut to the announcers. The story is that, like, production didn't know, people backstage didn't know, the talent didn't know. And Daniel Bryan actually tweeted that he's never felt the air be sucked out of a locker room like it was last night, which suggests to me that was when people found out, was when Roman made his speech. According to Meltzer, Creative were told that the show has to change, but weren't told why. So the word was just that, the Roman situation is going to be addressed at the top of the show, but we don't know what that situation is. And it turns out this is what it was, and like it's, I wish him nothing but the best, as anyone would for someone suffering from leukemia, is that you gotta fight it as much as you can. But it was it was tough to hear him talk about the way he did, but seeing him on stage with Seth and Dean, that really, really got to me. And cutting to Renee. Yeah,
because of course Renee, Michael Cole or Corey said, you know him better than anyone, which was another weird puncturing of kayfabe. They very rarely address that Renee and Dean are married.
Yeah, she said my husband.
And Renee said, he's been riding with my husband for the last 6 years. It's like you said, it is I'm not a fan of the character, no. and the problems are still very much there with that. But when hopefully when he comes back, he's gonna be so incredibly over. This was the best promo he's ever cut. That sounds cynical. I don't mean it to come off cynical. Hopefully everyone will give us the benefit of the doubt. But it's like I cannot. Of course, it probably will eventually, but I cannot see anyone booing Roman Reigns for a very long time, and not just not booing him, but not being anything other than very much into him and very much behind him, even as a wrestling character. It's very unique.
Yeah, I mean, I was thinking WWE, they've got this kind of mentality at the moment to be a bit Big Brother about things, and they film everything. No matter what you do or where you're going, there are always cameras following you. And I just thought to myself, at the end of this, my mind's kind of going in all different directions. I thought, God, this is going to make a compelling episode of 24 or 365 someday.
Or ride along.
Or ride along on the WWE Network. And WWE.com had this sort of backstage video of him going through the curtain and hugging and embracing everyone, which was really heartbreaking stuff. And
you should watch that if you get a moment. Triple H, Shawn Michaels, Paul Heyman,
Braun.
Seeing Braun Strowman hug him, take him into that beautiful man castle that he is yeah. I
mean, and if I'm planning ahead, if I'm WWE planning ahead, and you just said it's going to be very hard for, I think you got to be a certain type of person to then boo Roman Reigns after this. I mean, I would almost think that and maybe this is just because this is what I did with my fantasy booking warfare that one time, which was just cancel the Roman Reigns character and just bring him back as Joe Anoa'i, and
that's a very good idea,
and just build off the back of this.
Roman Joe, as opposed to Samoa Joe.
Yeah, and just bring him back as Joe Anoa'i.
Knowing them though, that's when they'll turn him heel. After all that, it's we're finally ready.
Someone did say on Twitter, it was just I mean, he'll be a babyface forever now. And then someone was like, unless they do the heel turn. And it'll be the most shocking heel turn ever.
Speaking of...
Yeah.
I just want to point out that it's very not strange, it's just a horrible coincidence that, this time, pretty much this time last year, within a week or so, Roman Reigns was pulled from TLC due to a sort of stomach bug thing that was going around. Was it some bacterial meningitis? I think
it was meningitis.
And that was the last time the Shield had a reunion match.
It's when you had Dad Kurt.
Yeah, and Kurt Angle was the last minute replacement. And it's almost like this Shield reunion is cursed. And remember that, because that's going to play into my Dean Ambrose fantasy booking shortly.
Okay.
But the rest of the show, the rest of this episode, it was hard to care about anything that was not Shield-led.
Yeah.
Of course, you had this Roman Reigns stuff at the start. And I personally think WWE did an excellent job of using that in a sensitive way to fuel the Shield storyline.
I completely agree.
They say, Paul Heyman says it, I think commentary said it, I think Roman said it as well. The show must go on.
Mm-hmm.
If I was in that position, I wouldn't want them to cancel everything and just have I would want that to play into something.
Yes.
They're restless.
Yeah, exactly. Like
I have seen that people have been offended by it, though, as, essentially the night ended on a heel turn.
Yeah, a lot of people saying, like, you couldn't have waited just one more week. But, we'll talk about that, I suppose, in more detail. But, like, I don't want to turn this into sound like a Patreon plug, but we recently just reviewed Bad Blood 1997 for WrestleRamble Extra, which it went up on Friday. And that was... Bad Blood 97 took place the same day that Brian Pillman died. He died that afternoon, and like the WWE found out, like literally out like minutes before the show was about to start. And that sort of cobbled together a few things to kind of fill out the card because he was meant to have a match with Dude Love there. And I said in that review that there were times when they kept cutting back to Vince McMahon talking about and trying to like give the fans an update on this situation, because everyone was like, there wasn't really an internet back then. There was no Twitter for people to get their 24-hour news cycle. And there were times, every time it cut back to Vince, I think I wrote this in my notes several times and I said it on the podcast, that it just makes everything on this show seem pointless. Like, because a real life tragedy has befallen the wrestling world, and here we are watching this awful minis tag match that isn't doing anything to be like, God, I'm trying to get past this Brian Pillman death, and now all I'm doing is watching this awful thing. It's making me think even more of that. So the point I'm making is, as a credit to this show, I think that they used this awful situation very well to kind of like to feed a narrative through the show, and it never felt exploitative. And I would also say as well that I'm actually in a disagreement that they should have waited to do the heel turn. I almost thought it was the perfect night to do it.
Yeah, I agree. That Bad Blood show is very interesting because that is a terrible show.
It's an awful show.
And a lot of people's minds, performers, are obviously elsewhere because Brian Pillman just died. They're thinking about that. All a write-off. Not worth a single thing in the footnotes of history apart from the main event with an amazing angle. It's the first ever Hell in a Cell match between Shawn Michaels and The Undertaker, who are also on this show. And that's the debut of Kane. It's gotta be Kane. And, a guy just died and you're having angles based around people being burned and coming back from the dead. And later on, there's stuff on this show that, like the Undertaker and Kane have a segment from a graveyard. Yeah. Again, people were against that, but I don't know.
I thought that was in poor taste. Like, that for me is just like, it's the sort of thing that once you've done it and someone points it out, like, as a company, you probably go like, oh yeah, didn't really think about that. Yeah.
I think that's more of a on the safe side. We'll take it out, but I wasn't offended. It's quite obvious that whole storyline of DX versus the Brothers of Destruction occupies such a different part of, like, that is so obviously not real.
Yes,
that
but
I'm intelligent enough to know the difference.
I know, but I'm not. Like, I thought it was, considering that the man had died, and they were doing it to promote a show in that country where this journalist.
I see what you mean. I thought it was in when people were talking about the Roman stuff.
No, I'm talking about.
That is bad.
I was thinking.
That's awful.
When you were sitting there going, like, I don't think it's that bad. I was like, are you sure about that?
Oh my God!
It's terrible.
I just assumed everyone was against it because of the Reigns announcement.
It's because of that journalist.
Because Jamal Khashoggi died.
Yeah.
Of course. Well, no, that's awful. Done a 180 there. But back to the sub. 18 minutes in, we're finally getting to a title, although it needed context.
It did need context.
There's this. So just to know, Drew McIntyre was going after Braun Strowman throughout the night, and he claymored Braun on the ramp. Monster hunting. So that plays into the main event.
I've got something I want to say about that when we come to it later on in the show.
So the main event was Seth Rollins and Dean Ambrose, who cut a killer promo backstage.
So good.
I don't know if I can say killer either or anything, but a very good promo backstage where Dean's like, I don't know what to say. Seth's like, I don't know what to say either. So we're just going to go out there and do what we do best.
Believe that.
Yeah, believe that. Beat Drew and Dolph to become the new tag team champions. And, again, the main event, Dean and Seth come out the crowd, as the Shield usually do, and Seth seems to have it together now. But Dean,
he was choking back those tears.
Yeah, like, you got to think, pretty much all the times you've come out that way, you're doing it with the big dog, and he's not there because of the reasons he explained. Maybe that's when it hit Ambrose.
Yeah, and he'd left the building as well. And you got to think as well that he's got to not only perform this match, but also do this angle at the end as well. Like, there's a lot of pressure kind of riding upon his shoulders, really, for the ending of this show.
And they come down, and they feel like there is a bit of raw energy beneath them. Like, even when they wrestled the match, I thought, Seth Rollins is great at having a fiery hot tag, but there's a well-performed fiery hot tag as an actor, and then there's an actual real-life fiery hot tag.
Yeah.
Like, that's what I felt this was. But even with all that, screw Dolph Ziggler's record scratch. Like, I'm really in this. They come out. I'm like, yes, come on. Yeah, let's win it for Roman. And then, I'm here to rule the world, show the world, whatever. Yeah, but that's,
By the
nitpicking. I thought they had an excellent match.
It was awesome.
Yeah.
I thought it was really, really awesome.
Really frantic from the get-go, back and forth stuff. A couple of breaks, but didn't really... Apart from one bit where Seth was being worked over for ages, they kept teasing the hot tag. Hope spot, cut off. And then they go to break, and they come back and Dean's in the ring.
Yeah, they did the hot tag during the break, which is very odd for WWE.
Yeah, they usually structure the whole thing around that.
It made me think there were some sort of timing issues. And I don't mean this in a bad way, because actually I thought if there were timing issues, it made the match feel even more chaotic. Because there's a moment, so they kind of set up to do the Zigmore. Like, they do the zigzag on Rollins, and he kicks out for a really good near fall. And then Drew and Dolph set up to do the Zigmore. Braun's music hits. There is a near fall off camera.
Yes,
because they're focusing on Braun coming down, and in the melee of Braun coming down, his music playing, the setting up for the play, there was a ref bump and a near fall, and then Braun and Drew started fighting, and I was like, my notes feel like mad. Because it felt so brilliantly chaotic.
I wish stuff was like this more often.
Absolutely.
It feels Attitude Era in a good way.
Structured. Yeah, totally.
But there were some great spots in this. I really like when Seth buckle bombed Dolph into Drew. That was awesome. And that Seth kicks out of just a zigzag. Was that the one you...
Yeah, it's the one I was just talking about, yeah.
Because I remember it just being a Dolph Ziggler zigzag.
Yeah, it was. It was Dolph Ziggler, and then they set up to do the
I see. But then, Braun comes down, and he has this awesome stare down with Drew. The referee's bumped. You blink and you miss it. And then they start scuffling because of what happened earlier with Drew attacking Braun. And it makes sense with last week. Like, Drew attacked Braun at the end of that show. So, this wasn't... It's weird how WWE Creative was dropped this... I mean, can you imagine a huger bomb than, oh, by the way, your top champion is out.
He's gone.
And he's also factored into the storyline, like a huge component of the storyline that has all the belts.
Yeah.
There is no bigger... Like, it's the biggest thing that could have happened, like, change-wise to a company. And Creative have managed to pivot. And, Vince McMahon is the head of all this. So I'm going to say Vince McMahon has managed to, with his back against the wall, it's always this way. With their back against the wall, they more often than not pull it out. And they have made an engaging storyline with loads of plot twists that makes sense for the characters and what happened previously.
Yeah.
It's an astounding feat.
And it's even more incredible when you think that this feud had started with no end goal. What was reported yesterday was that Creative are just booking this week to week and have they have no end goal in mind of what they want to accomplish with this 6-person feud. And yet somehow it's actually resulted in various different sort of facets.
Yeah, you've got this really hot Drew-Dolph feud, and now you've got this amazing Ambrose...
Braun feud.
Yes, of course, Drew-Braun feud.
Dolph's got an out to do.
Yeah.
He's the odd man out.
Yeah, well, if you look at those 6 guys and who is just there to take pinfalls. Come on, sign, they said.
Take the fall. He's here to take the fall.
Sign another 3-year contract, they said. We'll make you Intercontinental Champion and Tag Team Champion, they said.
Could go do your stand-up comedy.
Yeah, it sounds great.
Anyway,
the Drew and Braun brawl through the crowd. Dolph's left alone. Great fire from Dean. Throws in the referee after Seth hits the curb stomp. 1, 2, 3. And they win. And it was such a good moment. Both guys felt it. I felt it. And they were just holding the titles into their breasts, and they stand up and they hug, and I'm like, this is awesome. And then, this was like, I felt like I was having the most intense, psychotic, bipolar episode in this show, because I was up, no, I was down, I was up, I was down, I was bored, and then I was up and I was down. Oh my God.
Yeah, when Dean hit the dirty deeds on Seth, like, I honestly was getting ready to like close down tabs, set myself up, go and make my lunch, go and jump in the shower. I was literally, I'd physically, mentally got myself at the end of that show. And then when he hit the dirty deeds, we were talking about this morning, I don't think I've been as stunned and surprised by like a WWE, like, here is a shocking turn of events, considering that they've been setting this Dean heel turn up for months now.
Since Big Show last Tuesday. Yeah.
Yeah. Since Kevin Owens turning on Sami Zayn at that NXT show.
Yeah, and that's like 2015, 2014.
Yeah. And the funny thing about that one is almost the exact same thing happened. That show ended, the little graphic came up at the end. I turned that show off. I closed down the network, and I text you being like, God, that takeover was awesome. That was a really great show. And you text me saying, like, did you watch right up until the end? I was like, yeah, where Sammy wins the belt and him and Kevin hug, right? And you just text me back going like, no, watch until the end to reboot on the network to watch it. And that's what I got here. I was like ready to shut down my notes, and all of a sudden this happened. I was completely caught off guard because I was so wrapped up in the emotion of the moment. I thought it was a stunning heel turn.
Yeah.
And this crowd, it was the right crowd to do it in front of, because you had that Roman promo at the start, that Roman announcement at the start. If you'd have done this next week, the crowd reaction wouldn't have been the same.
And a great crowd all night, I thought.
A great
Rhode
crowd
Island.
all night.
What you were saying about this being the most predictable heel turn of the last couple of years.
We've been talking about it since SummerSlam.
We've been talking about
since he came back.
SummerSlam last year, you mean?
That's right, even better, yeah.
Yeah, as soon as Seth and Dean won the tag titles in SummerSlam 2017, everyone was like, well, Dean's going to turn on him because Seth turned last time. And then a couple of months later, Meltzer was like, yeah, Dean's going to turn on him because that's the big WrestleMania feud. Dean gets, injured, and then he comes back, reunites the Shield. He's actually, like, every week has been built around Dean saying to people, I'm going to turn on you.
It's literally, his promos and actions are like, oh, I'm going to turn on you someday.
Yeah.
Be prepared.
And this was the only night where we weren't all going. Dean's gonna turn. The only night, and they pull the trigger. It's just, I am the balls on WWE. The balls on them to take this risk on the same night where the Shield's other member Roman announced he's got leukemia, which is just like such a mind-bogglingly awful announcement.
Yeah.
And then they do this, and it works. I'm in awe, and that's what I gave Raw. I gave it 5 out of 5. I am literally in awe of how they pulled this off.
It's incredible when you think about it. But I thought this heel turn was great, and Dean did this amazing heel down. Heel down. It was a great heel down. It was a great beat down.
Yeah.
And I thought Dean's selling throughout it was great, because he had this look on his face, this conflicted look of like, tonight probably wasn't the night to do this, but I'm committed now. I'm doing it, and I'm just going to continue doing it. And he proper beat him down, and he threw him into the barricade, and then he pulls up the mats, the protective mat outside, and he hits the dirty deeds on the concrete, and he's like throwing the tag titles at him.
Champer on him.
He did go full champer on him. And you got to think, like, this was a crazy show in terms of Dean turned heel, Elias turned face, Braun turned face. There's teasers that Drew sort of turned face as well. And there's like all these crazy things were happening. And you got like next week, I'm like, I can't wait to see what happens on Raw next week, because this was a bat crazy episode. And Dean and Seth are the tag champs.
Yeah.
Like that's the one thing.
I keep forgetting that.
That's the one thing no one's talking about, because we keep forgetting it. They're the tag team champions.
I'm going to add another bit to that. Seth's a double champion. I kept on forgetting. I wrote in my review, they're the new tag team champions. I was like, Seth's already got it. Seth's a double champion. It's incredible how they've done it. going back to the actual turn and Dean Ambrose's acting, which has been exemplary since he's come back. But this was, this is incredible acting, not just wrestling acting. Paul Heyman levels of Brock Lesnar beat me up last week acting.
Yeah. Remember what that angle turned into nothing?
Yeah, well, that's they put so much good faith in their ability to carry through these storylines. Yeah. But Dean does the turn, and he's just like, he's punching the mat, and he's like, why did I do this? And he even says, like, how could you? And I'm like, who are you talking to, Dean? You're not talking to Seth. You're like almost saying to yourself. But the bit that killed me, and I did cry.
Mate, I
cried.
I don't think that's an issue.
Well, I didn't cry at the. I'm not very good at crying at real life stuff, but I'm very good at crying at fake stuff.
Yeah.
So when this bit happened, I felt secure enough to cry because it wasn't real, and it was when Seth is taken out. He's just had this dirty deeds hit on him. He's on the floor and he's reaching out to Dean, and even after Dean had hit that dirty deeds on him, he goes, it's okay. We can work this out.
Yeah.
And it's like, the Shield are going through such bad times right now. Roman's got leukemia, and he still wants, like, he's man enough to say, I know this isn't you right now. I know this isn't you. And Dean is like, he thinks about it, and he's like, no, screw it. And he starts beating him up more. And this is my fantasy booking. I want that to play into this storyline. I want it to be, I think the most realistic way and the most complex way to approach these characters is for Dean to be fueled by, grief's the wrong word because that means that Roman has passed and he hasn't, but kind of like whatever grief would be, regret, I don't know, that I forgave you, Seth, and we all got back together. I forgave you for betraying us, but now this has happened. And you took away those years that we could have had, and like that's like you're like, oh, that's horrible. And I can totally see where you're coming from, Dean. I totally understand it. And Seth's like, oh man, I know, but like I apologize for that. So you're stuck in this really interesting loop of the heel being actually kind of emotionally right, but the babyface Seth just being, in terms of an eye for an eye, very much wrong, but he has made a penance for it. That's what I would like to see.
So in your fantasy booking, you're sort of alluding to, because you kind of said this earlier, of like the Shield reunion being cursed, so to speak, and that playing into it. So it's almost like Dean is saying, we've tried to do this again twice now, and it's fallen apart both times.
Yeah.
Where we never had to split up in the first place, and we could have had an amazing run together. That's really nice. I like that a lot.
I think that gives him some real justification. I thought I forgave you, but I just can't.
Yeah.
I can't. And you go back on that. So
that's great.
But any other bits before we have a beer?
Well, I mean, F cancer, obviously. But,
obviously.
Well, let's have a beer and toast the big dog.
Yeah, so we've got the rest of the full review of the show, like Elias's babyface turn coming up after this brief message from our sponsors. So our toast to Roman Reigns is Riott, which is a stout beer. This is, of course, from Beer 52. Go to www.beer52.com/WrestleTalk for your free case of craft beer.
That is for our UK viewers only. All you have to do is just pay the £2.95 shipping fee, and you'll that's right, and you'll get a free case of bloody craft beer, delicious craft beer, no less, and you get a fun little magazine. Also,
if you go to our Patreon page, and you're a $25 a month or more pledge hammer, you don't have to pay shipping. You get that first case.
Well, here's
free.
The thing. Is you can get the free case by paying the shipping, but also claim another free case without paying the shipping.
Oh, seriously?
On top of being one of our Patreon backers.
Oh, nice.
That's for our $25 and above backers. If you want to send us a message, you are UK based. So this is
stout.
You do like a stout, don't you? So this is from Cyrus Microbrewery, which was founded in Greece in 2014.
Cyrus the Virus Microbrewery.
That's right. It was founded in Ceres, Greece in 2014, out of a love special beers and a history of premium gastronomic products. Today, Varela beer comes from 5 different core recipes, as well as a number of special seasonal recipes. So the tasting notes of this...
I'm getting chocolate.
You would do from this, absolutely. What kind of chocolate?
Milk chocolate.
Oh, that's dark chocolate.
Damn it. Do you want to sip?
Thank you very much. This is awarded by the Brussels Beer Challenge Bronze Medal. The Greek roasted chocolate ale is unfiltered, unpasteurized, and made with special malts that bring out caramel and chocolate flavors. The taste is full, creamy,
caramel.
and sweet while a slightly acidity is distinguished as chocolate, coffee, and caramel emerge, leaving them a strong aftertaste with quite a bitterness of black chocolate. Simply amazing. Now, I actually haven't had this one.
Nom, nom, nom. Well, let's quickly do some Patreon shout-outs, and then we'll get on with the full review. So we've decided to stick with the cheap pops for people who donate $25 a month or more on Patreon, which we need you folks, because the NXT review is here. We're at a nice 755 Patreons, but if that drops at the end of the month, we're underneath the NXT bracket again. So,
and it's and the show is just getting good. We're about to find out who ran over Aleister Black.
Yep, we're building to that NXT takeover in a couple of weeks.
Oh,
it's just called War Games.
Yes, at the end of
it's
November.
In War Games. Usually I know the location by the title. So thank you, Paulie Dangerously Jarman.
Yes, Paulie Dangerously, one of the best. The $100 man, CD Horver. Yes,
you're the man. The Craftsman, Blake Carpenter.
Brilliant.
Hope you enjoy a craft beer if you're in the UK.
Absolutely. Mr. Anderson, Chris Anderson.
I like a Matrix reference.
Yes.
This is helping. I think just clapping and cheering is making me feel better.
Well, they do say that, laughter is the best medicine. And actually, I think they did this around, old people's homes, just getting people to, clap.
Just clap and cheer.
Just clap and cheer because
make them confused.
It just raises spirits because it's just it's a happy, fun thing to do.
When you're running, if you do a run and people go, "Come on," you're like, "Yeah, okay."
Yeah.
Oh no, I'm tired again. Andy, yes, it's me, Datsun. Don't clap that man.
Adam.
Andy is starting. He's a website writer. He's going to start with us full time tomorrow.
He's employed by this company.
Yeah. And he's donating on Patreon, which is great.
Thank you very much. Pay it back.
Yeah, you can get all these benefits for free now. Yep, your turn.
Adam and the Anthony Bergerson.
Don't you ever.
That's right.
Asuka's future husband and EOF one-man wrecking crew, Skin Trade. It's a
long and confusing name.
It's a name that we didn't come up with.
It's a name that's so long when he posts things up on Patreon, it almost doesn't fit on the screen. You'll never get this name right, you idiots. You see, now I came up with this name because I know we're never going to get this right. Matthew Zimajewski?
There's potential to say a racial slur in this name, I think.
Is there?
Matthew Zimajewski?
Zimjewski?
Brett the Hitman Matthew Williams.
Yeah! Woo! And finally, Killer Chris Phillips. Whoa, yes. Chris. So we'll have another 10 names read out on tomorrow and on the magazine show and the 3 videos next week as well. So
we're spreading it out a bit more.
Absolutely.
Haha, it's a Raw review looking jacked, man.
After the very sad news of Roman Reigns' announcement, we got Finn Balor and Bobby Lashley. Hey, this was just nice to see athletically built people smiling. And I'm just like, this is what I need right now. I just need Finn Balor smiling with his abs, Bobby Lashley being big, Lio Rush jumping around. This is a nice visual distraction because I cannot consume anything in my head right now. I'm too shocked.
Yes, we needed Finn Balor's abs and Lio Rush's Saturday morning cartoon villain mannerisms being a manager around ringside. And it was basically a match. They did some moves, and then Balor won with a quick roll-up, a surprise roll-up.
Yeah, so I was not a fan of Bobby Lashley losing at all, but at this point I didn't care about anything because I was too sad about the Roman news.
I mean, I'll be honest, I more or less forgot this match happened, but I'm just thinking back on it now. It was to kind of fuel more fire to that the commentators didn't know theory. Michael Cole, at the start of this, was just talking about the workhorses of WWE and how these guys just work in and out. And it just felt like it was a passionate piece from Michael Cole, not a fed line to him by Kevin Dunn or Vince McMahon. It's something that he just genuinely believes.
That's nice.
I think it's nice.
But yeah, the Bobby Lashley's only just turned heel in this new presentation, really, 2-3 weeks ago. Way too early to have him lose it in a surprise roll-up. I'm sure they'll trade wins for months. Can't look forward to that feud. Dolph and Drew are backstage next. They're talking about the tag main event, and they're worried about Braun Strowman. Well, Dolph's worried about Braun Strowman coming after them.
Drew's not, though.
No, because he's going to go, leaves the shot, comes back. Monster hunting.
I'm going monster hunting. Yeah.
Why did he have to walk off?
I don't know.
Just one more thing off camera as the elaborate turn.
Or as the directors off stage go like, you forgot your final line. It's like, oh, that's right, I did.
Yeah.
So I need to step back in and do it.
Then we got Ruby Riott versus Sasha Banks.
Yeah. So
so Evolution was mentioned in this.
So Evolution does come this Sunday. You wouldn't know it by this show because regardless of Roman's announcements and regardless of the main event, this was a match that was almost designed to make you not care about Evolution, to make you feel like everything on this show doesn't matter.
Yeah.
With the exception of Ronda Rousey and Nikki Bella.
This is a gimmick, folks. It's a gimmick pay-per-view.
Okay, so absolute knobface Adam Pacitti posted up on Twitter last night, and I completely agree with him, even though he's a tool, obviously. He was like, WWE have had months to prepare this show. Like, they've had more time to prepare this show than the majority of their pay-per-views that they book month to month. And this is the best they could come up with. This isn't a pay-per-view. This is not a pay-per-view. This is Raw, but without any blokes on it.
Yeah.
This is absolutely awful. And they announced
it's a nostalgia Raw. It's even worse.
Even announced
it's even worse than what you think it is.
Even worse. Michael Cole's going to be announcing the show as well, so it's an all-women's pay-per-view, but with Michael Cole providing commentary. And it's just like they announced the 6 matches that are on this show. 6 matches, one of which is a battle royal. This and this 6-woman tag. Who could possibly care about Bayley, Banks, and Natty versus the Riott Squad? My first thing is like, who could take the Riott Squad seriously at this point?
Well, the tag titles.
Like, again, well, this is it. Like, and someone else, I can't remember who posted this on Twitter, but this really made me laugh. I was like, so glad WWE spent all those months putting together tag teams just to put them all into that battle royal where they'll never get a spot to shine. It's embarrassing, is what it is. This show, and I imagine this show will probably be fun because the matches will at least have time. There's only 6 of them. But at the same time, it's a pointless gimmick show. And they should be ashamed of themselves. They should be absolutely embarrassed by this show.
Well, I think that really, it's an accurate reflection of what WWE as a corporation really thinks of women's wrestling. It's a gimmick. There's no substance there.
It's a PR thing. It's a PR stunt.
So why would there ever be anything of substance in the eventual pay-per-view?
With that said, I thought this was a good match.
It was okay. Back to the Evolution stuff though. It's like you got to think the Roman Reigns stuff obviously made a lot of people, me included, not care about anything. Because it sort of sucks all your attention into that really devastating real life announcement.
Yeah.
But then you're like, but that didn't affect what they had. Like of all the things that Roman's announcement affects, the women's segments are not one of them.
Yeah.
So this is probably what they had planned
all
for the
along.
go home show for Evolution.
Yeah, absolutely. It's 100% what they had planned.
It was a contract signing where nothing happened. There was
a 4-way that went a minute and a half.
This tag match.
There was a singles match.
I can't even remember. And a couple of a pre-recorded promo from Nia Jax and Dana Brooke.
Yeah. Ember Moon had one as well. But yes, to your point, it was, as I said, like I think this is an absolute shambles in terms of promoting a pay-per-view. They are lucky that Nikki Bella has mainstream appeal. Otherwise, this show wouldn't have sold out. They're lucky that Ronda...
It hasn't sold out.
It has sold out now. Well, it is likely going to sell out, but it's only sold out, or it's only going to likely sell out off the back of them announcing Nikki Bella versus Ronda Rousey.
Right.
Apparently, up until then, tickets were not shifting whatsoever. They announced that match. There was a massive surge of ticket sales because those two are a draw.
Or Ronda's a draw.
Ronda is a draw.
I don't think Nikki could headline a pay-per-view by herself.
Hey man, she's got
very few.
She's
of
got
the women's roster
nearly
could.
2 million YouTube subscribers.
Nikki.
Yeah, which Ronda says is a rubbish accomplishment.
I wonder what
Which I think is hurtful. I think it's very hurtful, Ronda.
I wonder what the Venn diagram of people who subscribe to that channel and people who are going to the Evolution pay-per-view are. I don't think it's that big. I don't think the Total Divas or Bella's Venn diagram parts of that are quite big either. I think, actually, large parts of those are just guys who subscribed once because Nikki Bella said she was going to get nude from 1 million subscribers.
Yeah.
What that is reverse sexism on us, because if we say we're going to get naked for 1 million subscribers,
With loose subscribers.
we'll go down.
Plummet. Anyway, yeah, I thought actually this was a pretty good match. It reminded me actually how good Sasha Banks is.
Oh, yeah.
Because
Everything's good.
I've proper gone off Sasha Banks as of late. And that's not her fault. That's just the way that WWE presented her as nothing to care about. And as a result, I've stopped caring about Sasha Banks matches. In the same way I've stopped caring about Bayley matches. The same way I've stopped caring about Ember Moon matches. Because they've all been presented as nothing. And therefore, when I watch them, I look at them as like, well, there's no need for me to get invested in this because it's not going anywhere. But this match, I was watching this, I was like, God, Banks is good. And I often forget how good Banks is because this company never gives her a chance to do anything.
And this was actually her
Anymore,
return to the ring.
Yeah, that's right.
After
Yeah,
a couple of, like a month out from injury or whatever it was.
Didn't she have a match last week?
No, she came out for Natty's match against Ruby.
Oh, that was it.
That was her return. I think so. I can't remember. The only other thing of note for this was Liv Morgan and Sarah Logan cutting an awful inset promo as the Riott Squad made their way down to the ring. It was one of those pre-taped gigs where Liv said something about dreaming of a landscape and world of pain and suffering. And Sarah was like, with the gang, me gonna hunt them down. I'm gonna hunt down my opponents. And Ruby said something intriguing and good, but Liv and Sarah were abysmal. But most likely the content that they were given. But when has Liv's character ever been that?
Yeah.
Like, I want to see a she's not the Undertaker.
Well, here's the thing, and this is testament to how tone deaf WWE can be sometimes. We had an article posted up on WrestleTalk.com, which is like a better card for WWE Evolution, essentially, with the same women and just booking a better card. And there was one match in there that I was like, why is this match not on the card? Liv Morgan versus Brie Bella. Like, come on. Like, that's an open goal right there.
I never even thought of that.
Like,
it stares you in the face, doesn't it?
Right in the face.
God.
Like, that was a massive talking point a few weeks ago. And you could have built up something on that. But no, Brie Bella has just she turned heel so she could second her sister into her championship match. Like, they've done out with Brie. Like, I thought they were going to do a Brie versus Maurice match, but they're not done that either. Like, Brie versus Liv is an absolute open goal. And shock horror, it's a storyline, which none of these other matches have got. Like, what's this 6-woman tag? What's the story going into this match?
They wrestle a lot. They've been booked in consecutive weeks against each other.
Condiments on doors.
Oh! God, when you were talking there, I was like, oh, I don't really fancy the idea of a Brie Liv in ring match,
Nope,
though.
absolutely
not. I
not.
thought, but Liv's improved recently. And then you said, you thought it was going to be Brie and Maurice. I was like, that's worse. That's much worse.
Yeah, I'm not saying it would have been a 5-star classic, but at least it would have been a storyline.
And just has to be a squash, really. Liv just decks her. Then we got the Brothers of Destruction promo from the previous week. It was the same.
Was it the same? Did we confirm that?
We've got 3 words for you. Rest in peace.
We had a conversation earlier in the office being like, was this the same promo as last week? And I said, I don't know. Because
there's no way they would have done it. Like, filmed it again with a few different lines.
Well, it could have been, because it was like there's no substance to the promo. They're just words. It's a collection of words said in a spooky boiler room.
Then we got Nia Jax in a non-spooky backdrop. She just says how Evolution, it's not about gender, it's about talent.
God, this was horribly
And
scripted.
then I've written down here that the point is it's about gender. That's the whole point of this show. And then she pointed out that she was the Raw Women's Champion 3 months ago.
I know.
And that just makes me depressed.
I wrote down in my notes here, God, this was horribly scripted.
Yeah.
But looking back on it, the Kurt Angle one was way worse. And it makes everyone else's horribly scripted promos not seem as bad in comparison.
So Jax would get a free pass if this was done live, because of course Roman Reigns is her cousin, something like that.
Well, she is The Rock's cousin.
So blood.
But they are blood brothers. Well, so The Rock and Roman are close by blood brother bondage.
Blood sounds a bit weird. Blood brother cousins.
Yes.
Yeah, something like that. They're close.
Yeah.
They're from the same island. They all know each other over there. That's how it works, isn't it?
That's what Vince McMahon will tell you. That and they're untamed savages.
That and my dad. That's they all know each other over there. And they, she's so if she just learnt that news, but this looked like it was pre-taped, so she's got no excuse to be this bad.
It was bad.
Yeah. Then we got the DX promo.
Oh, it's 2006 DX.
And it's got the DX entrance with the sort of what would you call them? The shots of crowds over in this first over shots of crowds.
Yeah. Glow sticks at the ready.
Yeah. And then they come, and I just thought this looks really past its sell-by date. You know, like when you can look at a sandwich and go, well, I'm not eating that, because that's definitely past its sell-by date because it looks crusty.
Yeah.
And I don't have to eat it
like
to
the
know.
Homer Simpson sandwich.
I don't have to eat it to know it's going to have the wrong texture and it's going to give me a funny tummy. And that's how I feel about watching DX walk down to the ring.
Gives you a funny tummy.
Yeah. Well, no, I know. When I see the match, when I sink my teeth into that sandwich, it's not going to be nice.
And I knew... So Triple H then starts essentially making fun of the Brothers of Destruction promo, because this is very much 2006 DX, saying, like, it was definitely cut in a boiler room in the basement of the mayor's office. And Shawn says, but we're not running for mayor...
I thought that was a good line, actually.
Well, I mean, the crowd didn't. And then Triple H, HBK says that nostalgia is just another word for old. And Triple H says that's true, but Halloween is currently 40 years old, but it's number one of the box office. I was like, no, the sequel is number one of the box office, not the original movie doing the same thing over again. It's a new version of it.
Yeah, no, it's the Freddy Krueger one.
You just did that to annoy me now.
Jason.
Yeah.
Is it the Jason one?
Yes, it's the Jason one.
Yeah. Leatherface.
Any more you can name?
Vader.
Oh, I mean slasher icons.
I was just thinking masked people. Rey Mysterio. And then he said maybe, the whole Halloween thing, good point. And the fact that they went, but we still sell out the Australia tour. And Meltzer said this, taking credit for the house there. And that's such a classic old-timer. That was me.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, I did that house.
I did that.
Yep.
What a douchebag thing. And then he says, maybe old is actually a polite way of saying we're better. And I was like, that's just how you book the Big Four.
Absolutely. And then what that promo essentially, that encapsulates DX 2006 in a nutshell. Yeah, we're older than everyone, but we're also better. So we're on top, and that's all that matters. Because we're not going to allow other stars to get over, and we're just going to push them all as the same bland people, whereas we're allowed to have character.
Yeah, like as much as I think Triple H and Shawn Michaels are very good at creating that next generation of talent, they're also friends with Kevin Nash. And this is what Kevin Nash would do all the time in WCW.
Kevin Nash, his famous it was a famous shoot interview that he did where he said that they had a mentality in the 90s WWF that they carried over into WCW as well, which was that they would look through the curtain, see how big a crowd is, and that would determine how hard they try in a match. And their mentality was always, well, we've got their money, so don't need to really try. Like, they've already paid for their tickets, so I'm getting paid either way. So I'm just going to look out. It's not that big a crowd. I'm not taking a bump tonight. And it would just go out there and not try. And that is the old wrestler mentality that thankfully is not around anymore, because wrestlers now want to entertain audiences and they want to try and earn your money and earn more money off of you.
So this was interrupted by Undertaker and Kane appear. Well, the dong hit first of all when I thought the crowd, and me included, thought they were going to actually come out. So everyone was a bit disappointed when it was just a Titantron skit. And there they are, digging graves for Hunter and Shawn. Of course, That is a time-old tradition in Undertaker and Kane feuds. I'm gonna dig you a grave, but yeah.
Timing, it's not great timing. I
People
think
have pointed out to me that is actually offensive.
Yeah, I think it is very tone deaf, just not really paying attention to what has happened in the world. Just kind of thinking you're in your own little bubble. And then someone says to you, oh yeah, but that guy really did die. Like, he really was murdered inside that consulate. And he is going to be buried. And you go like, yeah, we probably shouldn't have aired that promo, really.
I just thought Sean's tombstone should already have a from and dead date because he was already retired. And then you could just put another one underneath it.
Yeah.
Then we got a graphic revealing that at Crown Jewel it'll be vacant, defending his Universal Championship against Braun Strowman and Brock Lesnar.
Now, when Roman announced, this is what I wanted to talk about earlier. When Roman announced that he's going to be vacating the title, I started to rack my brain. I was like, oh, who's going to win the belt? Like, who's the next champion in line? And like the first two names that came to my head was like, well, Seth and Braun.
Yes.
Like Seth or Braun.
Seth, Braun and Drew.
Yeah, Seth and Braun were the first two names that came to me. And then I thought, actually, what I think I'd rather is someone who hasn't gone for the Universal Championship before. Kind of like when Owens won it. He was the guy that you didn't expect to win the belt. And that kind of made his title win all the more intriguing. And like the run was what it was. But that win initially did have some intrigue behind it, particularly with the Triple H storyline that went nowhere, as Triple H storylines often do. See Survivor Series last year. And then I thought, it should be Drew. It really should be Drew. And then I thought to myself while watching this, why isn't Drew inserted into this match? Insert Drew into this triple threat match and have him win the belt at Crown Jewel. Rather than Braun just win the belt in what will essentially be a foregone conclusion, because Brock sure ain't winning it, because I don't think he's coming back for more dates. And have Drew in there, add a bit of intrigue, and have Drew win the belt and be, perhaps a more interesting champion than Braun would be.
I totally get what you mean, and I can see the argument for it. I want to see Drew more carefully handled, though. I want to see him incrementally go up, win the IC belt, and then, SummerSlam next year, I would like to see him going for the title by that point. But I think now...
Well, you're in trouble, mate, because it pretty much looks like that's where they're going. Because like Braun and Drew are in a feud, and Braun's going to win the belt. So likely that he's going to have a title match. Well, I disagree with both.
But yeah, this is... so it's going to be Braun and Brock at Crown Jewel. Crown Jewel is going to have a title change. It's become an actually newsworthy show.
Yeah, whether it takes place in Saudi Arabia is a different matter. But I guess... Well, I say time will tell, but we're running short on that.
Yeah. Then we got Dana Brooke cutting a promo backstage about Evolution.
It was awful.
I tuned out. Then we got Paul Heyman. This is the opposite end of the spectrum.
Wasn't it just?
Paul Heyman comes out, and he is visibly emotional, and he cuts a hell of a promo about Roman Reigns and how he obviously likes Roman Reigns a lot. He's one of the people who hugs him first when he gets backstage in that WWE.com video. And showing what a master Heyman is. He turns that real-life situation into putting over Roman, putting over the match at Crown Jewel and Brock Lesnar.
He's very good. Very good at what he does. And he says that Braun is not on Brock's level. And that brings out Braun. And he said he's going to beat Brock at Crown Jewel. And he's going to bring the title to Raw every single week. So babyface turn for Braun here.
Yeah. And Braun came out and said, I know we had our differences in the past, but, love your Roman, essentially. So that got a pop. And then he turns around into the Drew
Oh, God,
Claymore.
It was good. What perfect timing on that. Why isn't Drew in the match?
So I just told you why. I had to get this image off WWE.com for my other review of this episode of this spot. Drew gets so high, like he is horizontal with Braun, which is 7 foot or 6'8" or something. Wow,
he's so good.
He's great at hitting.
He's the man around it. Like, and that's it. I mean, they were talking about this on Wrestling Observer Radio. That, like, perhaps, like, going back to the Roman situation. One of the things you and I haven't talked about at the very least is that. This is certainly the downside to WWE putting all of their eggs into this Roman-shaped basket for the last 5 or so years, is that they haven't built another guy.
Yes.
They built the entire company around him, and now those chickens have come home to roost because Roman's not there now. And we don't know when Roman is coming back. We don't know if he'll ever come back. Like, regardless of it, like, if he beats leukemia, he may just not be able to wrestle ever again. This might be the last we've seen of Roman. So this company needs to find a new top guy. And whether that be someone that's on the Raw roster already or you have a call-up from NXT, you have got to find someone. For me, like, you look at Seth, you look at Dean, I look at Drew. I think Drew is a guy you can build a company around.
I look at Matt Riddle.
Well, yeah, okay. Matt Riddle,
Keith Lee.
Keith
Get
Lee,
him up there,
Donovan Dijak. Just change his name because it's awful.
So
the new one, Donovan Dijak's great.
There's a couple of ways this could go. Your one is Drew getting added, Braun winning and having Drew as the first number one contender. When this first happened, neither of those were my first thought. It was Drew's costing Braun the match, and Brock's going to win.
Man.
And we just get, a couple of months of absent Universal Champion again.
Yeah, so anyway, Drew was interviewed backstage by Charlie Caruso, and he said that he's not afraid of what Braun will do to him, and he said weirdly, he goes, now we're going to defend our titles, which suggested to me that match was coming up next. But it was not, because I've written before that, Elias comes out.
Yes.
And last week, Apollo Crews interrupted Elias, and we thought, they're pushing Apollo Crews. They're going to give him a push off the back of this. He literally cut a promo that was like, I am not at my full potential. I've not really shown the WWE Universe what I can do. So I need to step up. I'm going to have a match, and I'm going to show that I'm great. And that's what happened here. He had a match with Elias, and he lost. So I guess that Apollo Crews push is over because these two aren't going to feud anymore. Elias is turning face.
I never saw it happening.
Apollo losing?
Apollo getting a push.
I see, right.
Like after the whole Chad Gable thing from the last month, I was like, no, not even gonna go there.
Mojo Rawley.
Yeah, Mojo Rawley, everyone. So yeah, it's Cruz is so athletic. Like I forget how impressive he is. He's standing, shooting star press, just doing flips around the ring. But there's no charisma there for me. I find it very hard to latch onto Apollo beyond that was a cool move.
I was never expecting Apollo to get like a upper mid-card push or a main event push, but I thought it would last longer than a week. And it didn't even last a week, really, because he lost here. So actually, it lasted a show.
Yeah. But maybe this is because they had to shuffle around face and heel turns.
But Elias could have lost here. Like, you'd use that Money in the Bank thing, that rhetoric that they always go with. If you've got the Money in the Bank briefcase, you can lose as much as you want, because eventually you'll cash in. And, they always say that if you're turning someone heel, you can beat them like a drum, because eventually they're going to turn, and everyone will forget all the times they got beat. Here, Elias wins, and then still turns babyface.
Yeah. I see what you... Yeah. I mean, I was never invested in Apollo, so I don't really care.
Fair enough.
But it is annoying that there's a stop-start push. But yeah, then after that, Elias's music played as well.
Yeah, because he won.
But I was like, I can't remember the last time I heard this music. It's usually him on a guitar.
And then losing.
Then we got the Kurt Angle World Cup promo.
This was diabolically bad. There were quite a few bad things on this show, but this was the worst thing on the show. By leaps and bounds, by country miles. This was diabolically bad.
I thought there were less interesting things on the show.
Why
did you take? Because it was a badly scripted, badly delivered Kurt Angle promo. But I did like the fact that they edited over footage of people he was talking about. I thought it put over the World Cup competitors quite well. Rey Mysterio, Dolph Ziggler, yada yada yada. But yeah, so why did you take against it so much?
It was how horribly scripted it was, and Angle's dreadful delivery of this. And it was like he had to say everyone's nickname, and then the Viper, the A-lister, the Miz, the charismatic enigma, Jeff Hardy.
It's because it's for the Crown Prince.
Oh, it was.
Like, here's your introduction to all these guys.
It was so bad. Like, it made Kurt Angle look like the biggest dork. Like, he's an Olympic gold medalist. He is a former world champion. He looked like he may as well be in that Mojo Rawley position because he looked like an absolute chump. I thought this was a diabolically bad part of the show. It was awful.
WWE really have brought back Kurt just to bury him.
Oh, it was really bad.
It's a terrible use of the guy.
I thought it was awful.
And then weirdly it comes back and Elias is still out there from winning the match just now. And he says, I felt so good after the win, I'm going to give you another performance. Because the previous one was interrupted. And he's just about to start his gig. But Baron Corbin comes out. And he's very mean to Elias. And it was confusing. I was like, where is this going? Elias works for me, says Baron Corbin. Get off the stage or I'll fire you.
Yeah, me and Stephanie have spoken, and I've got the power to fire you if I want.
This really was like 0 to 60.
Yeah.
Like, there was no foreshadowing of any tension between Baron and Elias. Nope. If anything, I thought they were on good terms, 'cause heels. But yeah, they just, they really go at it, which makes me think it was a last-minute change.
Oh, 100% a last-minute change. Well, Meltzer was saying on Wrestling Observer Radio that he said it's funny because 2 weeks ago, or a couple of weeks ago, they turned Bobby Lashley heel because they were worried they didn't have enough heels on the show. And now they're turning everyone babyface because they've realised there's not enough babyfaces on the show.
There's a lot of just people.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. There's loads of people on Raw. But they are just... unless you're DX or The Undertaker and Kane, you're just sort of flattened out. And I suppose Dean Ambrose and Seth Rollins get away with it.
So Elias says, well, I'm going to sing a song anyway. And he sings quite a funny song, which has the punchline of Baron having Stephanie's hand up his ass.
Like a puppet.
Yeah, which is great. Baron tells him to leave. Elias walks out. He's sad. But he comes back out and hits him with the guitar. Wahey!
Babyface turn Elias.
This is great. Like,
well, okay. Now, you say it's great. Only a couple of weeks ago, we were talking about the mega heel heat Elias was getting. And now they were just like, God, that guy's getting so much heel heat. Better turn him, babyface.
That line was getting heat.
But that's a line that you can try and extrapolate across. Like, he always does get heel heat. People love to chant walk with Elias, and they like to cheer him when he starts. But then, of starts, he goes, your local sports team. He's very, very good at getting heat. He is one of the few heels in this company that can actually generate heel heat.
But you're right. Everyone's cheering him up until your local sports team, and then they all start booing. Imagine if he just went with it and talked about how great this area is in the kind of rock way when he used to do his little rock concerts.
I think those concerts sound less interesting.
And then trashes his opponent in hopefully funny ways. Like, this was a badass line. So, I don't know if he's right in these, but they're generally pretty good.
I'd imagine he is. I'm intrigued to see where it goes.
Yes, I'm optimistic. I think Elias has got it in him, and yeah.
I'm intrigued. As I said, the cynical side of me is just like, man, he was generating genuine heel heat. Why turn him babyface?
Now we get to the part of the show where WWE remembers Evolution's happening, and we get like a just chunk of women's segments back to back, starting with Ronda Rousey and Nikki Bella's contract signing. I wasn't that into this.
Neither was I.
Yeah. So Nikki Bella, the Bellas come out first. Nikki Bella's very good on the mic, actually.
So much better as a heel.
Yeah, very, very good. And they get out of the ring when Ronda gets in. And they're like, she's like, why didn't you get in here? And Nikki says, well, you look like you want to fight, and we're not going to fight, especially in Rhode Island, especially in your local sports team. Boo! And then Ronda says something like, my mother would be embarrassed if I couldn't beat you both with my hands behind my back, which was contrived and only there as a setup line to set up Nikki's stuff, which was much better about saying, your mother's already ashamed of you. You lost at the Olympics. Yeah. You lost here. You didn't retire undefeated in the Octagon. I didn't think they said UFC.
No, they said the Octagon.
Yeah. And then Ronda just goes, I will end you. And I've seen a lot of people going, oh my God, that was so badass. I thought it was a bit lacking.
I thought it was a bit lacking as well. And it really kind of exposes WWE writers when the Twitter spats that these two have had on social media and on Instagram and stuff has been so much more engaging than what they've actually been saying on television. And like the stuff that Ronda wrote last week was so much more engaging. I know a lot of people have said that it was little more than slut shaming, but I thought it was actually a very solid promo that kind of like dived into real like fan frustrations with this feud. So I thought that worked quite nicely. And I thought this was a really wet fart of a go home angle. Because bear in mind, this is a go home angle for their match at Evolution. It sure as hell didn't feel like one.
Yeah. Again, they've done it the wrong way round. It should have been last week's promo that was here.
I'll be honest though, I was mostly distracted during this segment because someone had a sign that says, "Alexa, be my stepmom."
Weird.
And I thought, I mean, A, that kid's got issues. But then B, I looked at it a bit closer and I was like, is that El Fakador?
Did it look like Laurie?
No, it just this is the sort of sign that Laurie would have taken to a show.
I was distracted by Nikki's shiny hat. Is that you?
It's a very...
It's really glittery. Shows how good the promo was. I was literally distracted by something shiny. Dean and Seth had their backstage interview after that.
Character from Moana.
And then we got Ember Moon beating Nia Jax, Tamina, and Dana Brooke.
Oh, this match, if I said this went 90 seconds, that'd be generous. Because it might not have even gone 90 seconds. They did some spots, and then Moon won. She pinned Tamina, of all people, as well. I thought you meant to bring Tamina back as this unstoppable force along with Nia Jax.
She was beaten last week as well.
I thought they pinned Brooke last week.
I'm pretty sure it was Tamina again.
Actually wouldn't surprise me. But yeah, anyway, she pinned Tamina, and it's like, Jax looked a bit upset by this. But again, this is your go-home angle. This was literally your go-home segment for Evolution. What awful.
So Nia Jax, this is what I said last week. I think it's building up to an Ember Moon Nia Jax feud. Nia Jax turning heel.
It's because they're best friends.
They're best friends. And Ember Moon has pulled out the win when Jax has failed in the last couple of weeks. Since Ember brought back Jax, because they're best buds out of nowhere. Mm-hmm. So Nia will soon be she's on, because still early in her career. I think she can give Big Show's heel face turn a run for her money.
100% she can do.
Yeah, she's flip-flopping a lot.
Mm-hmm.
There was... it's such an awful part of me. I do find it funny when, like, Tamina doesn't get any crowd reactions. So the start of this match is based around Tamina and Jax staring off, trying to recapture Hulk Hogan and Andre the Giant magic. And no one's into it.
Who could, though?
Yeah, and then there's a bit where Jax lifts Tamina up for the Samoan drop. Crickets from the crowd. Yeah. And then Nia Jax even raises her hand like, come on. Nothing. It was hilariously sad.
I would have thought
Jax even screamed. Like, she screamed like, come on. Yeah. No one did anything.
I really would have thought like a top SmackDown star defecting to Raw really would have got a bigger reaction.
Yeah. Top. So this could be Ember Moon's first main roster storyline.
Oh, that's a good point.
If Jax ends up turning
Crikey.
Then we got Titus O'Neil doing some Susan G. Coleman stuff. This was quite nice because Titus is good at this stuff. And he's a babyface.
Mm-hmm.
By the way, me liking, or like at least getting into all the Roman Reigns stuff earlier and then breaking kayfabe is not the same thing as me getting frustrated with heels doing pre-planned charity segments.
You're preaching to the choir, man.
I think some people are going to call me out for hypocrisy. Well, it's not. It's very consistent.
Of course they are.
So, yeah, that was cool. And then the last thing we're going to finish on, just because it's the main event was Seth Rollins and Dean Ambrose.
Well, I suppose actually this was the go-home angle for Evolution. And it was missing 1/4 of the match.
Trish Stratus and Lita, you might know them as Best is Best for Business, were backstage having an interview, and then Alicia Fox walks in and does her crazy shtick, and Mickie James jumps them from behind, and they beat them up. But then Trish and Lita beat them up back.
Yeah, so it was... Key to this is that Alexa Bliss wasn't there. It was Alicia Fox and Mickie James that were doing the attacking and then were being beaten up by Trish and Lita. They were really trying to put this over as it was... it's the new generation versus the Attitude Era, because they kept saying like, oh, you guys are from the Attitude Era. And then at the end of it, when they beat them down, they were like, that's how we do it in the Attitude Era. And then sort of walked away. Really odd wrinkle to add to this storyline in your last segment before you do this. Also doesn't really make a lot of sense. And then
Also, the story that means is the Attitude Era, where women were treated absolutely horribly on television, are better than the new generation.
Yeah, I mean, but that's beside the point. Because we're ignoring that bit. We're ignoring all the gravy bowl matches and the fulfill your fantasy matches that they've made these poor women do. The key to this really is that there's the story that Alexa Bliss suffered a concussion over the weekend. She worked the house show on the Saturday, but not the Sunday. Or it might have been the Friday and not the Saturday. I think it was the Saturday and the Sunday. And she was replaced in her match by Tamina, I believe. And
solid hand.
Solid. Well, that's why you got her there. And they don't know if Alexa Bliss is going to be able to work Evolution now, because it depends on what the Impact testing results come back. As we saw with Liv Morgan, actually could be fine. And a week later, you're okay and you can work the match. Or she might just work the match and not do a great deal and just spend the majority of it out on the apron. So there is a possibility that could happen. But the way that this has been reported, that because this was... They kind of reported prior to the show, if there is no involvement in Alexa Bliss on Raw, it's likely she won't be at Evolution and Alicia Fox will take her place. So the match could very well end up being Mickie James and Alicia Fox versus the besties best for business.
Well, Alicia Fox is a trailblazer.
Well, yeah. It's just a real shame that it's all been built around Alexa versus Trish, and Alexa doing all the legwork for this feud.
And Mickey's going to do all the in-ring work now.
Yeah. Oh, mate. What a real shame. As I said, an absolute wet fart to end your Evolution plugging. They don't care about this show. Absolutely do not care about this show.
And also kind of a wet fart of a segment to end this review, because that's, we've already covered the main event of Seth Rollins and Dean Ambrose.
Which was
and
excellent.
the heel turn, which was great. But yeah, overall, apart from, about an hour and a half of this show was average to boring.
Yeah.
But all of the Shield stuff, all of the main event stuff was so incredible and genuine and shocking that, I gave it 5 out of 5. I can't see how you can't. I was literally in awe, as I said earlier.
It's the same when Daniel Bryan returned from retirement and he cut that amazing promo. I can't tell you a single thing that happened on the rest of that SmackDown, but it doesn't matter, because that Daniel Bryan segment was so good that it was just that's a 5 out of 5 show. And I think I'd probably be in agreement with you here, because that opening segment was I was so enraptured by it, and I was just my mind was racing all over the place, because it's a real life thing that's kind of bleeding into this odd little wrestling world, and I just thought it was it was all, I don't know, I didn't know what to think. And I was so shocked by the ending of this show that I was that's an incredible ending angle. Absolutely. And I thought to myself, I probably would have given that an in-awe rating as well. And
it's weird to give someone announcing they've got leukemia 5 out of 5.
But it's the same you'd have given when Daniel Bryan retired, you probably, or when Edge retired, you probably would have given those shows 5 out of 5 as well, because they were really engaging and enrapturing episodes. And that's kind of what I got from this. And it's an odd, as you said, it's odd to give a 5 out of 5 rating when someone announces something so devastating as poor old Roman Reigns did. But man, that heel turn at the end, I thought it was absolutely, and I just completely disagree with anyone. I think you're absolutely fine. You're entitled to your opinion, and if you think that it wasn't the right week to do it, I don't disagree with that whatsoever. But I do think it was the perfect time to do it.
Well, that's all we've got time for on this huge bumper edition.
Crikey.
Lots to talk about.
Indeed.
But please do click the videos that have just appeared on our laps to catch up with the latest WrestleTalk things, and go to www.beer52.com/WrestleTalk to get your free case of craft beer.
Keep it together.
I'm choked up emotionally. I've been Ollie Davis, that's been Luke Owen, and that was Rambling.